I know a lot about West Point. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. And I have been on their cover like 14 or 15 times. I think we have the all-time record in the history of Time magazine. I can read the polls maybe better than anybody because it seems that I understood the polls a lot better than many of the pollsters understood the polls. I can handle a bad story better than anybody, as long as it's true. I do get good ratings, you have to admit that. I love the First Amendment. Nobody loves it better than me. One of the great memories of all time, I went to an Ivy League college. I was a nice student. I did very well. I'm a very intelligent person.
He's not a moron, First Amender. What are you, stupid? Well, you're just jealous, First Amender. He's got all of this money. How could he become president if he was so stupid, Amender? Why don't you answer that? How could he be so rich if he really is just that dumb?
This tweet here caught a lot of people's attention. Around 4:30 this morning, he said, "Throughout my life, my two greatest assets have been mental stability and being, like, really smart."
New York Times, Trump got $413 million from his dad, much from tax dodges.
It has not been easy for me. And, you know, I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million.
In total, the president's father and mother transferred over $1 billion to their children, according to the Times tally. That should have produced a tax bill of at least $550 million based on the 55% tax on gift and inheritance at the time. Instead, the children paid $52.2 million, or about 5%. The 15,000-word Times report contradicts Trump's portrayal of himself as a self-made billionaire who started with just $1 million loan from his father. What emerges this body of evidence is a financial biography of the 45th president fundamentally at odds with the story of Mr. Trump has sold in his books, his TV shows, and political life. In Mr. Trump's version of how he got rich, he was the master deal maker who broke free of his father's tiny outer borough operation and parlayed a single $1 million loan from his father, saying, "I had to pay him back with interest." Fred Trump was simply a cheerleader. "I built what I built myself," Mr. Trump had said, a narrative that was long amplified by often credulous coverage from news organizations, including The Times. Certainly a handful of journalists and biographers, notably Wayne Barrett, Gwenda Blair, David K. Johnson, and Timothy L. O'Brien, have challenged this story, especially the claim of being worth $10 billion. They described about how Mr. Trump piggybacked off his father's banking connections to gain a foothold in the Manhattan real estate. They poked holes in his go-to talking point of the $1 million loan, citing evidence that he actually got $14 million. And they told Fred Trump once helped his son make a bond payment on the Atlantic City casino by buying $3.5 million in casino chips. The findings are based on interviews with Fred Trump's former employees and advisors and more than 100,000 pages of documents describing the inner workings and immense profitability of his empire. They included documents culled from public sources, mortgages and deeds, probate records, financial disclosure reports, regulatory records, and civil court files. You know what? Let's draw up a timeline. Yeah, I think I could draw up a timeline to kind of illustrate this. All right, so we're going to break down Donald Trump, wealth, empire. Timeline. Okay, 1946, born to today. And we can take a look here. We have 1946, Donald Trump is born. By the 1950s and 60s, Fred Trump is a very wealthy real estate developer, specializing in middle-class housing and New York City outer boroughs. Lots of money, lots and lots of money. Everybody makes money. Specifically, Fred Trump. This is throughout the 50s and 60s. By 1971, Trump takes over business. So Trump, to this day, claims that he got a small loan of $1 million from his father.
It has not been easy for me. And, you know, I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million.
In truth, he received at about $413 million, which is inflation adjusted. He received $413 million over the lifetime from his father, often through tax avoidance schemes. And this is proved through the 2018 New York Times investigation. Throughout the 70s and 80s, there was a Trump moving his business focus to Manhattan. And he completes in 1978 the Grand Hyatt Hotel. In 1983, Donald Trump completes the Trump Tower. Now, mind you, the Trump Tower was actually not financed through his personal finances. He didn't have the money for something like that. He actually gained fame as a flashy developer by using very heavily leverage, so debt, to finance the projects. Often that was done with taxpayer subsidies and PR hypes. And then so by the late 1980s and 1990s, this is where Donald Trump is going through a bad time. He collapses. Collapse, bankrupt.
Bankrupt, legally. No money on my card. Go and put it in there.
1987, he publishes Art of the Deal. Boosts his national profile in 1987. By the late 1980s, he buys casinos in Atlantic City. He did the Trump Shuttle airline. You'll probably notice that there's not really a Trump Shuttle airline anymore, as well as the Plaza Hotel. Unfortunately, right, he actually did not have the money to cover this. He defaulted on his loans. He gave up some of his assets, and he relied on banks to restructure debt.
Do something! You're smart, right? Do that thing!
And so this basically allowed him to, forfeiture a lot of his assets rather than forcing him into personal bankruptcy. Throughout the 90s, so throughout the 90s, all the way into the 2000s, this is where his total branding comeback. So rather than actually, doing real business, instead what he did is that he focused away from real estate to licensing his name and branding. So that is where we have things like Trump hotels, to things that he doesn't actually own, earned revenue from books, speeches, and licensing deals.
He's already got his own hit TV show, his own beauty pageant, his own casino, and tons of real estate. And now he's got his own vodka.
It's a smooth vodka, it's a great tasting vodka, and I'm very proud of the fact actually that I don't drink, but it's a vodka that people really like, and as you know, it's taken off like crazy.
Right? So you have to be aware that Donald Trump, he was making his money just off of his name alone. Like all of this, right? You'll notice that this has kind of got a bit of a cascading effect of like dominoes, basically, where it all starts with Fred Trump. All sorts of other stuff. I mean, the fact is that Donald Trump never would have gotten the amount of money that he had gotten access to if it were not for Fred Trump. And even then, like, he kind of, had some ideas for businesses and, trying to do kind of what Fred Trump did. And he just sucked at it. He was terrible. He couldn't do it. But, it doesn't matter as long as you just show that rather than on paper that you're rich, but instead you just show that you're rich just by looking rich. You can get that branding, you can get that the Trump hotels, you can get the books, the speeches, the licensing. By 2004, we've got the reality TV's licensing boom, The Apprentice.
But Rod, you're fired.
So what's really interesting about The Apprentice, they're the guys who made The Survivor, right? Survivor, the show. through The Apprentice, what they needed is that they needed like a CEO or a CEO type figure.
You gotta be mobile if you want to be a top dog.
Or a tough-ass warrior.
Or super popular.
Or a CEO.
That was going to be able to be there for the show. Now, lo and behold, it turns out that CEOs command extremely expensive fees because obviously they're a CEO. They're often running a business and the amount of money that they're garnering is pretty substantial. So what The Apprentice needed was kind of like a dollar store CEO that just looked rich and that was it. That's all they needed was just somebody that, looked that way as opposed to somebody who actually was that. So that way they could spend less money on the CEO. Donald Trump fit that bill perfectly, right? He had this idea as, okay, well, he's like this rich guy.
Excuse me, where's the lobby?
Down the hall and to the left.
Thanks.
And he's like he's like a brilliant businessman. We could sell that idea. So there you go. He makes a ton of money from The Apprentice as well as licensing deals, which totals to about another $427 million. Right, and this is confirmed by tax returns that were released by the the New York Times. By the times of 2000s and 2010s. We're talking about naming condos, steaks, water. I think vodka's in there. His direct investment in real estate is less than what is actually happening. And of course, y'all are already aware of this portion, the presidency. And we're not really going to get into that, but mostly we're just going to get into the fact that Donald Trump, his wealth is nowhere close to what people say it is, and he's not this brilliant investor that just knows the art of the deal, and he's like amazing in every single way.
Meanwhile, President-elect Donald Trump has indicated that he will break from tradition and so will not receive daily briefings from the intelligence community. In an interview on Fox News just last week, Mr. Trump said, and I quote, I'm like a smart person. I don't have to be told the same thing in the same words every single day for the next 8 years.
How stupid do you have to be to sit there and look at like a chief economist or like somebody who's like doctorate level understanding advising you on like what's the best course of action, and you're just like, nah, I don't need that. I know what's best. Cohen found that he almost had to shout to be heard. Look, he said, the only time that our trade deficit goes down were times like the financial crisis in 2008. Our trade deficit goes down because our economy is contracting. If you want our trade deficit to go down, we can make that happen. Let's just blow up the economy. On the other hand, Cohen said that if they did it his way, no tariffs, no quotas, no protectionism, no trade wars, if we do things right, our trade deficit's going to get bigger. And when the trade deficit got bigger each month, Cohen went to Trump, who grew more and more agitated. Sir, I told you this was going to happen, Cohen said. This is a good sign. It's not a bad sign. I went to parts of Pennsylvania, the president said. They used to be big steel towns, and now they're desolate towns, and no one had a job, and no one has work there. That may be true, sir, Cohen said. But remember that they were towns 100 years ago that made horse carriages and buggy whips. No one had a job either. They had to reinvent themselves. You go to states like Colorado, you got 2.6 unemployment rate because they keep reinventing themselves. Trump did not like or buy any of the arguments. It has nothing to do with it, Trump said. Trump supporters all around, I want you to acknowledge that Donald Trump is a moron. There are tons of people that are highly educated, highly specialized in their particular field, and somehow Donald Trump is an expert in every single one of them. I don't understand how you can be an expert in economics when you yourself you've missed literally tariffs 101.
2, me, I don't know, PhD, cancer biology scientist. I work in a biotech company. We make COVID-19 testing kits, stuff like that. And then 6, it has nothing to do with your background. I don't think you really have the highest EQ out of all of us. Tyler, he ranked last for me personally because the way he carries himself. He was ranking intelligence based on his point of view and not taking in other people's point of views and compiling results, but really just came down to his body language, his demeanor, the way he carried himself, the way he acted towards the group.
So number 1 is Raymond, number 2 would be Kaylee, number 3 will be Tyler, and number 4 would be Shada, number 5 is Sean, and number 6 is Maria.
Well, I think it's important to understand he doesn't have a philosophy, so he's not charting some course that he's laid out before. One observer said Trump doesn't have ideas; he has reactions, and I think what you're seeing is that kind of reactive behavior. He is transactional; he doesn't follow lines of policy. So he has an impulse in the morning to do high tariffs. Markets don't like it, so his reaction in the afternoon is to postpone the tariffs. I think anybody who thinks we're really going to have this resolved at the end of the 90-day pause doesn't appreciate how complex tariff negotiations can be.
Donald Trump shows that he has had multiple aides reported that he refused briefings and often just relied on Fox News for his information. He dismissed his own CDC and medical advisors during COVID. He mocked military generals. He said that he knew more than generals do. At what point do we start to consider he's a moron? Here we have the presidential vocabulary by grade level of the Flesch-Kincaid grade level scale. The analysis assessed the first 30,000 words that each president spoke in office and ranked them on the Flesch-Kincaid grade level scale and more than 24 other common tests analyzing English language difficulty skills. Trump had clocked in around mid-4th grade, the worst since Harry Truman, who spoke at nearly a 6th grade level. At the top of the list were Hoover and Jimmy Carter, who are basically at an 11th grade level, and President Barack Obama in 3rd place with a high 9th grade level of communicating with the American people. You can see right here on the presidential vocabulary by grade level, Flesch-Kincaid grade level, Donald Trump is sitting there at a 4.6.
We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated. With the smartest people, with the most loyal people.
You know, considering that reading level is just so low, you know, you find himself just often repeating phrases where he's just like, people are saying, or like, a lot of people don't know this, or believe me. Contrasted with hearing Obama speak, or even Bush. Even Bush, that's how low this bar is. Trump's vocabulary is incredibly simple and shallow, which would explain why so many people voted for him. I mean, if you really think about it, if Trump speaks that badly, and that's how a majority of people in the United States speak, and that is the level of comprehension that is available, as soon as you say anything complex, they're like, I don't know what this person is saying. They're just saying a bunch of goddamn gobbledygook words. I don't get it.
Earlier today, you told me that you believe that foreign countries pay tariffs, but Americans who are concerned about higher prices believe, as most people do, that they're paid by consumers and importers when they import things into this country. Can you explain how you came to this belief that foreign governments are paying tariffs?
Oh, I'll go ahead. The first part, the tariffs are necessary because we've been treated very unfairly by many, many countries, including our friends, friend and foe. But we've been treated very unfairly in trade at levels that nobody's really ever seen before, and especially under the Biden administration, they really took advantage of the United States. I put massive tariffs on China during my 4 years. We had the best economy in the history of our country. Probably the best economy, maybe the best economy in the history of the world. And I used tariffs to even things up. And in particular with China, we took in hundreds of billions of dollars and we had no inflation. And it's a myth. It's a myth that's put out there by foreign countries that really don't like paying tariffs.
So if you look at that, China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So 67%, I think you can, for the most part, see it.
Trump, those aren't tariffs. Those are trade deficits, as in the amount that we get from them is more than we give out to them. Does that mean we give them green pieces of paper while we get goods, products, and services? Yes, that's literally what that is. I don't know why he thinks a trade deficit is equivocal to a tariff. Oh, that's right. I know why. It's because he's a moron. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know anything about this. You think he's this brilliant businessman. He has no clue.
So 67%, so we're going to be charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. I think, in other words, they charge us, we charge them less. So how can anybody be upset? The European Union, very friendly. They rip us off. It's so sad to see. It's so pathetic. 39%, we're going to charge them 20%. So we're charging them essentially half.
I mean, what do I know? I'm just some idiot YouTuber. Like, who cares about my opinion? I don't understand. You have all of the power in the world and you could get the best economic advisors ever. And it's almost like that you're like asking, like, I don't know, ChatGPT or something for information.
He's not for why he's prioritizing that over the tax cuts.
He's actually not implementing tax hikes. Tariffs are a tax hike on foreign countries that, again, have been ripping us off. Tariffs are a tax cut for the American people. And the president is a staunch advocate of tax cuts. As you know, he campaigned on no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, no taxes on Social Security benefits. He is committed to all three of those things, and he expects Congress to pass them later this year.
I'm sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have.
They
don't get charged on foreign companies. They get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's insulting that you're trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press. Mary, go ahead.
They're challenging your understanding of economics because your understanding of economics is garbage. You're an idiot. You're an idiot, just like Trump. And Trump is believing the stupidity because he himself is an idiot. We are running the largest country, the largest economy ever based off of a single person that has a 4th grade reading level. So after everything we've seen, it's clear. Donald Trump isn't just misinformed. He's confidently, loudly, and consistently wrong. This is a man who looked directly at a solar eclipse with no eye protection. He claimed windmills caused cancer, and he suggested to using disinfectant inside of the body to treat COVID-19. He said that we should nuke hurricanes, believed that stealth jets are literally invisible, and once asked why we had a civil war, as if history was just as a confusing subplot. These aren't gaffes. This is a pattern of proudly refusing to engage with basic facts, while somehow convincing millions that this is telling it like it is. At some point, we have to stop pretending it's all part of some genius master plan, almost like he's playing 4D chess or something. He's flipping the board. He's eating the pieces and declaring himself the winner. If the goal of leadership is to inform, unite, and make competent decisions, then Donald Trump is playing an entirely different game. And judging by the scoreboard, it's not going very well. If you like this video, subscribe. I do debates. I debate people every Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you like what I do, sometimes I do online streams where we just hang out. Subscribe. Thank you. Thank you very much.